Good evening. Welcome to my abode here in the northern suburbs of Syracuse. Sorry, I must have had a frog. Must have had a bat in my throat. Hi, I'm Oh, sorry. So used to wearing a mask this year, I forget that I'm wearing a mask. Oh, we'll get there. Hi, I'm Carl Cafarelli, the co-host of This Is Rock and Roll Radio, heard every Sunday night from 9 to midnight Eastern here in Syracuse on Spark, WSPJ LP Syracuse 103.3, 93.7 FM, sparksyracuse.org on the World Wide Web. I'm also a writer, and I'm working on a book called The Greatest Record Ever Made, Volume 1, dedicated to the notion that an infinite number of songs can each be the greatest record ever made as long as they take turns. And that's what records do. They take turns. With Halloween coming up in a few days, I wanted to jump ahead. The first two videos in this series covered the songs in the order in which they appear in the book. Do You Remember Rock and Roll Radio by the Ramones and Baby Blue by Badfinger. But with Halloween coming, we're going to jump ahead and talk about what is the all-time best-selling local single in the history of Syracuse music. A very specialized market, but a song that is nonetheless the greatest record ever made, and that was the Transylvania Twist by Baron Daemon and the Vampires. In that period of time, the single came out in 1964. It looks an awful lot like this. Amazing resemblance. At that time, in the 50s and the 60s, most local TV markets had their own local TV vampire. And in Syracuse, that was Baron Daemon. In other places, it could have been Goulardi, whoever else. I don't know. I only lived in Syracuse when I was a kid. The best contemporary example would be Svengoolie, that sort of thing, or Elvira, if you will. Well, that's kind of a different and more curvy thing entirely. But the idea of a corny vampire on TV, hawking horror movies, camping it up, being a hit with the kids. In Syracuse, that was Baron Daemon. It was played by a local local personality on Channel 9 WNYS in Syracuse, Mike Price, who started putting on the cape and the tuxedo like Bela Lugosi in the 1931 film Dracula. You know, our popular conception of what a vampire should be with the Transylvania accent, and basically yakking it up like a bat out of vaudeville. Very corny and brilliant. I've said elsewhere that if you were a kid in Syracuse at that time, Baron Daemon was as big as the Beatles, and I'm not exaggerating. Baron Daemon was huge here. And in the wake of the national success of Bobby Boris Pickett's Monster Mash, someone here in Syracuse got the idea, well, we got a vampire. There's a line in the Monster Mash about, whatever happened to my Transylvania Twist? Empires have been built upon less. So someone got Mike Price into the studio. Reports vary about whether he wore his cape and his makeup. Probably not, but let's just presume he did. To do a follow-up, a cash grab single called the Transylvania Twist. It really should not have been any good at all. As much as I love Mike Price, as much as I love Baron Daemon, what kind of recipe is this for a pop single? You know, forgettable, I'm sure. It was magic. Like a vampire, it is immortal. Went into the studio with local group Sam and the Twisters, led by Sam Amato, who in 1964 also played on the roof of the snack bar at the North Drive-In in Cicero for the premiere of the Beatles movie A Hard Day's Night. You top that. So he had Sam and the Twisters with Baron Daemon, and a group of siblings, the Big Tree Sisters, who were usually more likely to record in the style of the Andrews Sisters. They weren't really a rock and roll group, but in this one instance, they effectively became the Shangri-La's Syracuse version, backing up the vampire. And the result was just stunning. Mike Price, I have this picture of him in the studio, which probably has nothing whatsoever to do with the reality of it, but I picture him camping it up, doing his shtick, you gimbal brain, hold up your baby and hold it tight, this Baron Daemon is lurking tonight. And I get chills. I get chills. I'm not exaggerating. It embodies my notion of the greatest record ever made, because in that instant, it is just the best thing imaginable. You want to hear it over and over again. It should have been a national hit. but it was designed to be just a local release to promote a local TV show. It was put out by WNYS TV. The label says WNYS TV right on it, which you can almost see. And they had no interest in promoting this elsewhere to any other market. What would be the point? This could have been and should have been a national hit, but smaller minds prevailed and it was not released anywhere except Syracuse. It's sold out. It's very difficult to get now. I'm very happy that I have a copy. I was one of the Baron's bloody buddies. I had my sweatshirt. I'm a real cool ghoul. When I was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old, up until that time, I remember just playing in my front yard, wearing my Baron Daemon shirt and saying "Baron Daemon, Baron Daemon," which oddly enough suggested I had heard the Kinks' "You Really Got Me" or Roy Head's "Treat Her Right," because I had that riff and I adapted it for use in my impromptu Baron Daemon theme song. Baron Daemon was my first Batman, and of course we know. I think anybody who knows me knows how important Batman is to me. I love Batman. I love the character. And I remember in 1966 watching the Baron's afternoon TV show and a commercial for the then new Batman TV show, which hadn't premiered yet, so of course we hadn't seen it yet, came on. And after the break, after the commercial ran, camera came back to Mike Price, the Baron, saying, "What's this? I'm the only Batman around here." Whoa! Nonetheless, I became a Batman fan. It's not the real one. Became a fan of other Bat characters too. Something else. That's the roots of Elvira right there. But the Baron was just something special, and I think it's timeless. I got a copy of it in the '80s on a collection called "The History of Syracuse Music," volumes 10 and 11, right here, and you can see right there is the Baron himself waving at you. Bloodthirsty Baron. There's also a picture of the Big Tree Sisters inside here. I can get that up to the camera. Right there, dead center. But the whole thing went away in the late 60s. There was a fire at Channel 9. The costumes, the props, all burned. There was not sufficient interest to continue the Baron past that point. Again, smaller minds prevailed. Reports vary about whether Mike Price wanted to move on and use this as an excuse to not be the Baron anymore, or if Channel 9 decided to write fini on the character. I don't know. Many years later, working in a retail store, Mike Price came in and I was talking to him, trying to be professional, of course. And my friend Dave over the counter said, "Hey, Mike," and pointed at me. "He's a big fan. Come on, do the Baron." And Mike Price said, "Oh, but that was so long ago." And that was cool. That was cool. That was like meeting a Beatle. I'm not exaggerating. In the early 90s, I think it was, Baron Daemon was inducted into the Sammys, Syracuse Area Music Hall of Fame, Syracuse Area Music Awards Hall of Fame. And he came back on stage in full costume with Sam and the Twisters. The Big Tree Sisters weren't there, but they had people there to try to fill their shoes. And it was magic. I was there in the audience watching this childhood dream come back to life, back to life, undead life, immortal like vampires. Someone asked me in writing this book, The Greatest Record Ever Made, aren't you concerned that putting in like a regional hit that not everyone's heard of, like the Transylvania Twist by Baron Daemon and the Vampires, don't you think that's going to hurt your sales? Don't you think that you should just focus on the most popular, the biggest names to draw more readers? And that's a good question, and it's a valid point. But to me, it's not a question. The Greatest Record Ever Made has to transcend popularity. Certainly, we talk about the Beatles in the book, Badfinger, Stevie Wonder, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Wilson Pickett, the Monkees, the Bay City Rollers, Kiss, Prince. I have a list of 166 records that are in the book, and one of them has got to be the Transylvania Twist by Baron Daemon and the Vampires, because that is the greatest record ever made. It's one of many that takes one of its infinite turns as the greatest, but it is absolutely the greatest. In its infinite turn, it is the greatest. I can't imagine how my life would be without the inspiration of Baron Daemon. We were lucky in Syracuse. We had a lot of memorable TV personalities in the early 60s when I was a little kid. We had Salty Sam. We had the Magic Toy Shop with Eddie Flumnum and the Play Lady and Merrily and Mr. Trolley and Twinkles the Clown. We had Salty Sam. We had the other Channel 3's horror movie hosts, Dr. Witty and A. Paul. But above all else, we had the Baron. In trying to tell the story for my book, I wanted to frame it in such a way that would be interesting for people who weren't from Syracuse and weren't familiar with the Baron. So I conjured an idea for the chapter of what would happen if a young woman, unidentified, a slayer, a vampire slayer from Sunnydale, California, visited Syracuse to talk to the Baron about this record, this mystical talisman, the Transylvania Twist. And in telling that story and interweaving it with the facts, as we know them, about the recording of the Transylvania Twist and the history of Baron Daemon on Syracuse television, I think, and at least I hope, that I was able to convey my enthusiasm and the intrinsic value of this record and this memory. It's the greatest. Infinitely, it's the greatest. Happy Halloween in the meantime. Thank you for joining us for another edition of The Greatest Record Ever Made. Next week, we're going to talk about Chuck Berry and Promised Land. In the meantime, you can look below for options to subscribe, to support. I will put in a link if you'd like to read the chapter about Baron Daemon's The Transylvania Twist. And we thank you from the bottom of our bathy bat hearts.